rock and roll? It's a simple question, Courtney. It's a yes or no.
Yes.
Are you ready to rock and roll?
I am.
Are you ready to rock and roll? Okay. I'm glad we checked. Hello everyone, welcome once again to the Kindred UMC live show that is pre-recorded, this time from a Saturday night rather than a Sunday night because we're having our solstice event, not on solstice. My name is Chris Haden, I'm the pastor at Kindred UMC.
Hey, I'm Courtney, I'm the Director of Community Engagement at Kindred UMC.
And I'm Preston, learn to drive.
Yeah, did someone
Tis the season.
piss you off on the road today?
Actually, no, today was good. But
I had to go to the grocery store today.
It needs to be said.
I would also say learn to shop.
I can top ya. I went to Total Wine today.
Yeah, it's
It was a nightmare.
A nightmare?
A nightmare.
Nightmare.
A shout out.
Did you actually say that? I wasn't making fun of you, I promise.
No.
It was
inside joke.
It's a Bert Kreischer joke.
Oh God.
Red.
No, I was literally like I mean, I'm old now, so everyone looks like a teenager to me.
Yeah.
She was probably 28.
Yeah.
But she looked like a teenager to me.
That's older than both
And
of us,
she
by
was
the way.
like doing, and also with the mask don't help either. And she was like doing her best, and God bless this girl. There was a moment when the manager walked over and she's like, "Hey, there's really no one else that can help." And she was trying to be so polite to her manager. Yeah. And she was like, and I was looking behind the line that she had, and it's not because she was going slow. Like she was going at a reasonable pace. And the line behind me was literally like halfway down the actual like aisle of groceries.
To do what?
Now, part of that's because of social distancing. Like people are actually like
in line.
But people in line for her were backed up down the shopping aisle.
Was it 10 items or less or whatever?
No.
Oh.
No. It was like normal, just aisle 6 or checkout lane 6 or whatever. And I just felt so bad for her because she's like, "Hey, there's really no one else that can come out." And he's like, "No, it's the holidays." I'm like, "Fuck you, dude."
Don't say that. Why are you saying that?
This girl is just like panicking, doing her best, and like Anyway, be nice to your retail people and your grocery people and anyone else who's serving you during this crazy ass holiday season. Like this one in particular.
Yeah.
We're all on edge. Just take a deep breath and calm down.
It's nutty but nutty.
Be nice to the people who are helping you. Okay, off my soapbox. So we have crossed over from the Advent season. Advent means arrival. It's the season before Christmas, usually the month of December. And now, even though because we're pre-recording, we're still in the Advent season. We're actually going to publish this during the Christmas season, which is the 12 days after Christmas. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to be talking about an event called Epiphany. Everyone say it with me. Epiphany. You didn't say it.
Yep.
Why?
On purpose.
Can you spell it?
Epiphany. Epiphany.
I don't know if you spelled it right.
She spelled it the way I know it.
I am reliant on Siri and autocorrect and all that stuff.
Third place in the spelling bee in 5th grade. So.
Still not first.
I always had excellent grammar. I can speak very goodly.
I
But
think I'm gooder than you.
I can't spell worth a damn. Like, I just can't.
Worth or worth?
I can't spell worth a damn.
Just making sure. We're in Florida.
Yeah.
So.
All right, Epiphany is the event in Scripture, and we're going to be looking in the book of Mathew, when the 3 wise men, the magi, come and visit the birth and visit the Christ child because they see the star in the sky and they follow it. And, it brings about the "We 3 kings of all," but they weren't kings. They were astrologers. And, interestingly enough, they were Arabian. They would have been Muslim, except Islam didn't exist yet. Islam doesn't come for another half a millennium.
Yeah, that's why there were camels there.
Well, I mean, it's the desert. That's what you use.
Or speeder bikes, but those aren't here yet. So.
Or lime scooters.
Later it'll
good.
be speeder bikes.
Oh, yeah.
And oh gosh, what are the Bantha?
Yeah.
Speeder bikes.
Ride
and
a
Bantha.
lime scooter and eat shit. That's an option
Some
too.
of us do that, Courtney. Don't divulge.
So we're going to be looking at that. Are there any other loose ends to tie up from Advent stuff?
So we had a good discussion on the Joseph story of how I think that relates to more of us than any of the other stories in the Bible, since he was approached as, "Sorry, Joe, but everyone else that you are related to right now is more important than you are, and you have to tell everybody about it. And be supportive and do this, and you are normal." That's what we are telling you right now.
Yeah.
You are the normal person here and have to be that way for everyone else to figure out what the hell they're supposed to do in this situation. Instead of quietly being culturally appropriate and divorcing or whatever, unengaging.
Yeah, quietly dismissing and divorcing.
Instead of following that path or following the angry path of something happened, I wasn't in control, I'm out. Instead, swallow the pride here.
He probably had to eat some shit from
sure.
his family.
Yeah.
Because they a dream. An angel in a dream.
Joseph.
Come on, Joseph.
We don't believe you. This is the holidays, Joseph. You're lying to us. Yeah, family during the holidays. Fun. But yeah, that was my biggest point, and it got to a really, really good groove of a conversation that I've never discussed about. You always have the Joseph. He was the guy like stepdad that wasn't in the picture and he was there. Who cares about Joseph?
Well, yeah, we read modernly into the dad who stuck around.
Yeah.
There's an absentee parenting crisis going on in our entire generation.
Yeah, and we got a little deeper of. I think we all relate a little more to Joseph than.
No, yeah, he had a tremendous call laid before him, and he took it up.
Yep. And tying into this whole make that change, the Abraham change, the Jonah change, the Noah change, the Babel change, everything is
the repeating story.
Repeating.
It is all about death unto life, unto death unto life.
Yeah.
This wheel that turns and this death leading to resurrection, which is all just metaphor for can you change to address the thing that's before you? Can you change to benefit the people who depend on you? Are you capable of it, or are you going to stay? And the minute you are static, you will die. But the minute that you'll let your current existence die, you will live. You will find transformation like that. And that is exactly the Christ story. That is the point of almost every great religious story, not limited to Christianity, but like almost every great religious story. That is the point. Like, can you die to yourself now so that something new can be born? Or can you die to yourself now so that something new can resurrect? You know, like that is that's like the purpose of religion, is to invite people into that process and then support them as they go through it. Because it's not easy. It's not sit up and have good posture and everything's going to work out. It's no. You, by the very nature of your life and your existence, are in a constant cycle of dying to yourself and being reborn. That is the point of our existence. And when you stop doing that is when you stop living. You know, and these are all, you know, Jesus uses like different language. Those who will be first shall be last, and those who are last will be first. And, you know, whoever wants to protect their lives will lose it, and whoever is willing to lose their life for my sake will gain. Like, all of this it's just talking about that whole cycle. You know, and good religion, healthy religion, and I would specifically say healthy Christianity, is actually a community that kind of worships that cycle and then supports each other through it, so that we're not desperately alone or afraid of it, but instead we can face it courageously, and then the community benefits from any individual who goes through that. And like anyone who is in Christ, it says there is new creation. It's not just like anyone who believes in Christ becomes a new creation. It's anyone who finds themselves in Christ, there is like all creation is different. Like it's more than just the individual, Jesus is my personal savior. Like it's no. There's a bigger human thing happening here. And like we've just lost a lot of that over the past like 2,000 years or so. Anyway, okay. I will. Let's talk about Epiphany. So we're going to go back to the book of Mathew, and we're going to do chapter 2, verses 1 through 12, I think. 12. Okay, and the scripture will be down in the description below. I'm reading from the New Revised Standard Version, the NRSV. So if you're reading from a different version, the words might be a little different. Okay, here we go. In the time of King Herod. Now,
here we go.
He said, here we go.
I know.
It already has something to say.
We've talked about this in the Gospel of Luke. Luke used the same phrase, in the time of King Herod. The same thing but this is the first time it's being used in the book of Mathew. So this is the first time this particular writer has used it. Just as a refresher, the time of King Herod is a joke. It's a bitter, nasty, laughable, awful joke. King Herod.
On a historical point, is this signifying almost the same point in time, or at least relational time?
This is actually a couple years after Jesus' birth.
Okay.
So even though we always kind of have the wise men in the manger scene, they're not. This is like a couple years later.
Oh, not in the story. In the story writer. In the time of King Herod?
Oh yeah, the guy who wrote this.
Yeah.
This is maybe 60 years later. I get them mixed up.
We were reading Mark before.
So Mark is the first one. That was maybe
No, but that's what I'm asking.
I'm not ready to say.
The last time we heard in the time of King, like the actual phrase.
I don't want to guess and say it wrong.
But the actual phrase
Luke
in the time
is the other one who uses that phrase.
Because Luke and Matthew are
Luke
around.
is slightly after Matthew.
But slightly. So I'm saying, like, we use phrases
Maybe
now.
similarly written.
Right, we can use phrases now from the 90s and stuff that we're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But from the 60s, you're like, okay, that's pretty far away.
This is definitely within the same century, maybe a decade apart or so. It's hard to date. There's a lot of like,
and I ask because,
nobody can really know for sure.
And I ask because you are reiterating this point that we've made already.
So, and Matthew's the first one to actually use that phrase, in the time of King Herod. And it's important to know because Herod is a puppet.
Right.
He's a false king propped up by Rome. he's the hand, like he's technically king, but it's like, yeah, what a joke. Like in the time of King David, that's a sentence. In the time of King Solomon, these are like eras. In the time of King Herod, like that's bittersweet, like king, not really, So Matthew's just using the same thing. So first century readers, in the time of King Herod, there's a bitter sting to that kind of cruel joke, King Herod. Okay, in the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men, or magi, or astrologers, from the east came to Jerusalem, asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star at its rising, and have come to pay him homage." Interestingly enough, this year there will be a Christ star, where Jupiter and Mars, I think, Jupiter and another planet convert, like they cross each other's path to create this bright shining light, and it's a Christ star, and like it's not a star at all, it's a are we still recording?
I don't know.
All right, let me just pause just in case. We've had good track record.
Like a shutdown, shut off noise and a restart noise. Just to make sure.
I'm stuck. My
That's what
wire's
Tim and I were looking at.
stuck. My wire is stuck.
We were looking
This
at
all
stars
stays in. This is all part of it.
because Mars was out in Colorado.
Yeah.
So we were laying down, and he's like, "That star's like orange," and I'm like, "It's Mars. That's not even like you can see it's not."
Okay,
a
we're
star."
still recording.
And it wasn't
Okay.
like stars usually like flicker kind of, and planets just like they're like the moon. Like the moon doesn't flicker.
It was also
Stars don't
fucking
flicker, they
freezing
twinkle.
when you guys were out there. It was so
Stars aren't here. It's like
Okay.
we're seeing. Okay, never mind.
All right.
That's science.
So yeah, planets will align this, and like this is probably what was going on with the astrologers from the east, probably from the Middle East, like not like necessarily Russia east, but like further into kind of more like Saudi Arabia, like east from Jerusalem, and they would have traveled in a giant caravan. Like they would have. This is a serious journey. It's not like three guys get in their van and drive over.
Yeah.
Like this was a serious journey to make over a serious season, and so they're following this astrology, and they're aware of this kind of prophecy, like the one who's born King of the Jews, which is kind of incredible. That this foreign people who have no personal, but they are like paying attention, and they came to see this amazing event that happened, and pay homage. So sorry, you were gonna
not to tap more into history and like geography stuff, but I think the Middle East was a little more technologically adaptive than their Eastern buddies too. So having magi come from the East to come here with they have like astrolabes, and they know how to use I don't know if telescopes were around back then, but whatever technology they have that's more updated than what's coming on here, for them to bring gifts, which we'll get into, is like
know about that.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I
So
don't know the
was
answer.
this the point in time when they had mirrors before everyone else?
There's
crazy...
a time when basically if it weren't for if it weren't for Arabs, we wouldn't have algebra.
Right.
They saved algebra. But I think that has more to do with, I think that's later, more like in the Dark Ages. This is
I think you're right.
like
But
500
to
1,000 years later.
I was seeing if there's some kind of tie here, if this is more story element of this is so important, someone else from another culture is coming and
That's my
appreciate it.
interpretation.
Okay.
It's that these foreigners show up all of a sudden with a caravan, like 100 people.
Yep.
And because they have to bring everything with them and set up tents in the desert, and they have to bring provisions, because the desert is the desert. You know? And so they show up, and it's a pretty big deal that somebody came.
It's kind of weird. It's like them showing up going, we know too. Something's going on here.
They've come diplomatically to pay homage to the King of the Jews. It's like an ambassador going to visit the Queen Mother.
But it's not Herod.
Well, here's the response when they say King of the Jews. When King Herod, verse 3, when King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him. And calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, in Bethlehem of Judea, For it has been written by the prophet, and you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel. Then Herod secretly called for the wise men, or the magi, or the astrologers, and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word so that I may go and pay him homage. So he's being a little trickster here. I want to go see him too. He wants to fucking murder him. Verse 9. When they had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen at its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their country by another road. So they end up not reporting to Herod. Spoiler alert, Herod ends up fucking murdering every child 2 years old and younger.
Yikes.
Like, that's how desperate Herod is to not have competition.
That's some Game of Thrones shit.
Yeah, and it's like
so that's what I was
genocide.
That's what I was going to ask. Is these three wise men, probably in a political move that America does in the Middle East right now, who we pay homage to a person that we want in power over there to either help our needs or something's off there.
I think it was that may be reading a little too much into this,
but
with the writer's intention. I think this is more innocent than that. I think this is genuinely
of
or
course.
at least that's the intention of the writer. Because again, the writer's just telling a story.
And I'd hope it is, but humans are humans, and it's fun to fantasize at making a modern antiquitous story modern. Make it more modern. I wonder if this story was true.
It is. It's much more like I would equate it to. So we've been watching The Crown. It's more like going to pay homage to the birth of a royal child.
Okay.
Like, it's more like, hey, this is a big deal, and you're our neighbor, and our friend, and we want to be diplomatic and pay homage. But little did they know, they stumbled into this kind of like desperate political nightmare where the king now is threatened because so this is actually the dynamic that is interesting because there's this one little tiny thing in this text that I think that I overlooked because I've read that, I've been in church for a long time. We read it all, every Epiphany, that's the text you read. And I'd never noticed this until, shout out to Dr. Brian Russell.
I love him.
He is utterly brilliant. And he teaches at Asbury Seminary. He's one of the deans.
I've taken classes with him.
Yeah, he's incredible. And he just very nonchalantly in a sermon one time just pointed this little phrase out. When they say, we came, the one who's born King of the Jews, and it says, King Herod was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him. Like, it's not just the king who's threatened. It's the insiders. It's all of Jerusalem who had lifted themselves up. It is the people, it's the people who go to church.
Oh. That's interesting.
Like it's the people who should have been watching anxiously for this event to happen, and it's news to them when the people from the east come and say, hey, we heard the great news. And they're like, yes, we also heard the great news. Just remind me what the great news was. Like, well, your king has been born. We watched his star. Oh, yes. Quick, get all the people who are supposed to know something about this together and tell me. And then, like, they have to gather the scribes, and they're like, well, the prophecy, we've known this for, like, I don't know, centuries, is supposed to be that out of Bethlehem there will be, like, and And that's all news to the people who are supposed to be the worshipers of Yahweh and Yahweh's chosen people. It's news to them, and it scares them, like it frightens them to the point where they're willing to murder. Like, so something going on there that I think is a pretty important prophetic word for the churchy people. Like, how come this was unexpected to the people who are tasked with watching out for this?
Because churchy people tend to stay in their churchy circles and not ever expand outside of that.
Well, so like...
Meaning like this weird word change we keep talking about?
I was going to say, we started this whole thing with this idea of like, the whole point of good religion is the invitation to die to yourself, to be transformed and be reborn into something new that is needed and benefits the broader community. This is the prophetic word to the exact opposite of that. This is the like warning of this is what happens. Now, a lot of this stuff would have been known, but the consequences of that are conquered by Babylon, conquered by Assyria, now conquered by Rome, puppet king, shabby second-rate temple in Jerusalem, pagans are in charge. Like, all of these things are directly tied. Now, we have to be careful here because I don't want to go all Joel Osteen. Like, I'm not saying that if you do right by God, then God's going to reward you. And if you don't, then God will punish you. But that is kind of the framework that these people would have understood. That is how they would have drawn conclusions to, like, the reason that Rome is here is because we have been unfaithful. And yet, when news of the birth of the Messiah comes to them, they panic and seek out murder. So like, so, you know, the solstice that we're about to do tonight, the solstice has typically been, by the way, Jesus wasn't born in December. People picked this time of year because it coincided with celebrations of the winter solstice.
I was just going to say, we always talk about the conception story, and then a week later we're talking about him being born, and there's no like, isn't there like 9 months there?
10 months actually, typically.
Yeah. Oh yeah, right. Well,
that's something that'll blow your mind. Do the math. It's actually about a 10-month pregnancy.
Well,
that's how long humans typically carry children.
They have 10 months then too?
Yeah. What do you mean?
They had 10 months, like in the calendar year.
Oh, I don't know
like
anything about.
Was December like
I don't know.
December, like the 10th month?
I don't know. They would have gone by the phases of the moon, so it would
Solstice?
have been
Like
phases of the moon and the seasons.
No, yeah.
So it broadly would have been very similar, because that's basically our calendar is based on seasons and phases of the moon, and like we get our weeks from the phases of the moon, we get our months from the seasons of the year. Like you just kind of keep dividing in like half until you like. We know that about this time of year it gets really hot, so we're gonna call that halfway. And about this time of the year, it gets really cold, and the coldest and darkest night of the year. So we're going to call that the end of the year. And like that's kind of how it goes.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the solstice thing, because the solstice event, before Christians adopted it as a Christian holiday, the solstice event was typically understood to be it's the longest, coldest, darkest night of the year, literally. Like astrology, it like based on where the sun and the earth are, you know, and also because of dependence on farming and dependence on the weather, and this is where God worship comes from. Like the idea that people worship gods comes from dependence on the weather for food and survival. Like that's the most primal place where worship starts. So the longest, darkest, coldest night of the year was the night when you would get together and you would feast, and you knew that you weren't going to see some of these people ever again. Like you would celebrate and make offerings to the gods so that you might make it through the winter when there's no food. And God, I hope we stored enough corn. I hope it doesn't go bad. I hope we preserved it enough. I hope we make it through the winter to the spring when we can start to grow again. Like, that's what the winter solstice was. And so that's when Christians picked to kind of put this Epiphany celebration. So as a result of that celebration, the new year, the turning over of a new, like, that's where we get kind of like New Year's resolutions. You know, it's this idea of like turning over a new leaf and what changes do we need to make. So that's kind of the question I wanted to ask. It's very easy to kind of criticize the churchy people who are doing it wrong. They're stuck in their ways and unwilling to change, and that's why they're going to die, because that's the message of Christ. And that's the message of Epiphany too. Like, these people who were just completely unwilling to be who God wanted them to be, and were kind of addicted to their own power and their own comfort. Like, it's easy to cast that out. What I want to do is invite a conversation about where are the places where we get stuck? Where are the places that we need to maybe allow to die, to change, to transform, and to turn over a new leaf? Because this is the new year. Like, we're coming up on the new year.
I'll start. I think the big one's a grind. I think you hear someone say, I'm in the grind and my nose is to the stone and I'm just, okay, right here. Myself, it says this all the time. I'm always working. I'm always doing this. I'm always busy. What am I doing next? What's next? What's next? What's next? Instead of slow down and take a breath and sit and stare at a wall and just meditate for a second and like relish over things that have happened and appreciate what's going on instead of looking forward and forward and forward until, like we're talking about now, it's too late and you've missed a Messiah being born that you've been prophesizing for thousands of years.
You were supposed to be excited about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, great, not exciting. Next, what are we doing? What's
Yeah.
next? What's next? What's next?
Yeah.
So this whole grind talk, I think, is literally a machine moving. For it to stop, you have to turn 180 and tell yourself to stop. Instead of going forward, start going backwards so you can stop the machine. Because you're going too fast this way and there's too much riding on you.
Yeah.
On me.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
I think for me, I've been like talking through this and thinking through this over the last week, actually, with Matt. And so like I have been working through like this sense of pride that I have. And I don't necessarily mean that in like a bragging, boastful, like egotistical way, so much as in because of who I am and what my nature is, I very much will think that I can do it all on my own and I won't ask for any help, whether it's here, whether it's at my other job, whether it's with Matt, whether it's with friends. Like, I just think I can carry everything for everyone, including myself. And then I get like frustrated and like break down and get upset and work myself up to the point I'm overtired. And it's because I could have asked for help, but I didn't, because I just didn't want to. And so like,
it's funny how it starts. It's so easy to get distracted by I'm upset now at this.
yeah.
But it starts all the way back in a simpler choice.
Right.
And I identify with that.
And I feel like it sounds so stupid sometimes
No. That translates very hard. Like literally Twitter.
Yeah.
Literally Twitter. It starts from a good-hearted place of, we want to help these people because they're disenfranchised.
Franchised.
Yeah, disenfranchised and malnourished financially and like whatever kind of words you want to use. So I need to go out in my community and help. And that literally rolly balls into, then you get 5 or 10 years down the road and go, what am I doing now?
Well, and for me, it's like I literally will carry your emotions and I will carry your feelings and I will carry your thoughts. And like when I get into a place where I'm stressed or upset or I don't vocalize, I don't talk about it, I keep it very much to myself.
No, there's no time. There's no time for that.
Yeah.
I'm joking. Like, I
Yeah.
say that exact thing.
Literally.
I'm like I need to sleep for 4 hours so I can get up and worry about other people.
Yeah.
It's
really bad. And then like, again, in particular, my mom has told me since I was like 6 months old that like when shit hits the fan, I like just start like crying and like I'm tired, I'm exhausted. And my mom's like, you are overtired. You need to like lay down. Like, and so that's
Also,
my
you need
thing.
to lay some shit down.
Yeah.
Like, not just you, but like
I need to trust people enough to allow myself to allow them to help me. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. And
But I'm like great at helping other people, but then like I have a very, very, very hard time actually letting other people help me.
I think that translates so well to this culture we're in, like this second right now. It's I've got no problems, so I can go help everyone else with problems. Because
gosh, and even the like put on of I can help other people. That proves that I'm okay.
Yeah.
Right.
You're like, I can prove that I'm okay. Watch how much I help.
Like you're a living oxymoron right now.
Yeah, and people think of help in like practical ways, and I'm not even talking about impractical like doing dishes, doing chores ways. Even though it can become that, for me, it's not typically that.
I'll tell you that it makes me think of like the worst examples of like social justice warrior.
Right.
It's the, not to say that, because like there's a difference between being an effective ally for somebody who's like going through actual oppression, being an effective ally and supportive versus some of the voices that we're hearing that are like, you're some rich white lady who doesn't care at all about that, like, and you're just posturing for likes on Facebook.
Right.
And I think there is something in the like, see, I'm okay. See, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not what we need for progress. Like, if we're going to make progress, it's going to take actual, real humility and real, like, partnering with people who are suffering through things. Like, and like, I identify with that too. Like, I know what it's like, particularly as a pastor, to want to be seen as the one who's good and noble and true and right, and the Honorable Right Reverend Chris Haden, Christopher Scott, like I that lives in me, and I know that feeling. I also kind of like self-hate it,
Yeah, for me, it's not so much that as it is like, I just feel like I don't consciously think about the fact that I need things, and then I don't consciously think about the fact that there are people who are willing to help. I just shove them all down and shove them all down and shove them all down and think that I can do everything on my own and then explode. When it's like, if I could just like backpedal that about 7 steps, like when Preston asks, hey, what's going on? Instead of just saying like, oh, not much, I'm fine. Like allowing myself to open up and like be vulnerable in that moment probably would have really helped me 7 steps down the line.
Yeah, because not you, but personally, people will think their problems are just not as important as others. So when I ask, or someone asks, what are you doing today, or how have you been? Well, I turned on a lamp, and that's a very bad example. Right. But you think it's, I just turned on a lamp. But someone else hearing it goes, you turn on a lamp? You did this today? But because you're so, and everyone's like this, every single person is so just next. I don't want to think about anything I'm doing right now, or stay in the present, to use your words. There's no thought in like a meditative sense of, relish is the wrong word, but I like it. Relishing in a moment that you deserve to relish in, that you've done.
Yeah, you're talking about presence.
Yeah.
Like being present. Like what's the point of living if you're not living?
Right.
Right.
But I think most people find themselves just kind of like rolling along. I was talking with a really good friend of mine, former student maybe, but really just a friend now. And we were talking about this, like, this year in particular that has been like, it's been both long and quick at the same time. Like, it's been like so long and tedious, but also it's like, oh fuck, it's December. Like, how did that happen? Like, I remember when we were talking about quarantine only lasting 2 months, and now it's December. And we were talking about, like, particularly when we were talking about the virus, like, there's supposed to be, like, vaccines coming out in like somewhere between like March and July, you know? And it's like, actually, given this past year, that doesn't even seem that far away. Just because it's been this weird, for me, like almost like not present kind of haze of a year.
Like you're on tumble dry right now.
Yeah, I'm just kind of like rolling along.
Here we go.
You know? Yeah. There's something like that's not good for us. You know, like it's much, and that's part of the part of the work that we do is a lot of like, even in the grief, even in the painful parts of life, it is better to be present,
right,
and to actually feel what you're feeling, to actually experience the reality of what's going on, rather than to kind of like be on tumble dry, you know, like. But I think most people are just kind of like rolling through whatever's going on. And I would say this year has been particularly difficult for me. I do a lot of practice to be present. Like I have the benefit of, as a pastor, of like having part of my like core identity and job being like, you do have to do regular practices. Like being still in the morning and meditating and being in prayer and being in like just like centering yourself in something that's beyond you, like that's a big part of who I need to be in order to accomplish the calling that I've got. No other job really has that. You know what I mean? Like nobody, I bet your boss is not expecting you to spend some time in silence in the mornings or whenever, you know, right, whatever practice works, right, for you. Like spend some time in silence, just connecting with the essence of things and whatever's beyond you and the nature of creation. If you do that, you'll be better at your job. Like I have that, and I still, this year was just a shit show for doing that. It has been so hard to stay in that and connect with that, and like it's exhausting. And as a result, it's just been this fog, just this vague fog of a year that's gone by, you know? Like,
I think it's produced good content.
Huh?
I think it's produced good content, if anything. This is me living in the moment,
yeah,
of having, well, not to brag, but having watched our live shows, just seeing like where this conversation has gone from a story, and then we just do a 180 and go the other way, because you said it 4 or 5 times. I didn't know we were going here, but here we go.
Yeah, right.
This was not something I was expecting to talk about, but it needs to be said type of feeling.
Well,
I feel like that's this whole year. It's this whole feeling of unease of like, I don't know if this ship's going to rock this way or the other way, but it might break in half. We don't know.
So to go back to like, again, that is a result of, one, I love that. That's what I think actual discipleship work is. It is all right, let's take a moment to connect with the actual narrative here. Like the real story that God is kind of like birthing forth in creation. Let's really connect with it. And now let's go with that. Now where does that go?
Right.
But it does take, and this is something they don't really teach us in seminary. Like anybody who's studying to be a pastor doesn't get taught this, but it happened to be something that I really love. It takes a dying to your agenda. Like you can't come in with, all right, but hold on though. That's not the lesson I wanted.
Exactly that.
That's not what everyone sit down and shut up and listen to me, and I'm going to talk for 20 minutes, you know, like, which I certainly have enough of that in me already.
Correct.
You know, like that's my tendency. But like to die to that and to allow something I think better to be reborn, like to resurrect something new. And the something new is now we actually have multiple like pathways to what does this say? What is this story actually meaning to you human beings in 2020? You know, like, and then I can be in the midst of that with you. We're made better by sharing our stories. You know, it's the essence of the community, and it's the essence of like what it means to be in a church actual, not like a church. You know, in a church actual, it is this understanding that our real human stories, ugliness, pain, celebration, like all of it, that they actually inform and like improve each other, like when we share that together, you know. So I'm really excited about tonight to do the solstice thing, because that, like, how often do you get actually asked, like, what are you really grieving about this year? What did you gain and are celebrating this year, and what do you hope for next year? And like I'm really, really, really excited about a community of people who actually, like, we can have fart jokes and we can have those conversations.
Yeah.
You know?
I can't tell you how many times, just to keep on this vein of conversation, how many times, and not only because of this church and experience, but this has definitely stepped it up. But over the past few years of just maturing, and my brain's finally like pretty much done growing, of getting into a conversation with an agenda, now using our terms, dying to it, going, why do I want to talk about? You have something so much more important to discuss, and I have stuff on this that we could both discuss right now. Or I have no idea what you're talking about. Here we go, because this is gone now. We'll talk about it later if it's that important.
Yeah, can hang that up and
it'll be there. It's
be
fine.
there. Yeah.
And if not, it's not worth. But the whole dying is it's so weird. It's such like it's self battle in your head the whole time in a conversation. Oh, I've got to get my tires changed at the, and you're like, I just want to tell you that I like to wear party hats. I just want to tell you I like to wear party hats. You're like, why am I
hung up on this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Why do I have to say this? Instead of, who cares about party hats? We're talking about tires. Tires are cool. Bad example, fun example. It's what you get.
Well, I'll give you here's how that works in my real life. It's like family members who are absolutely frustrated about something that they have a right to be frustrated about. And I'm hung up on trying to tell them that they're wrong. Versus, like, who cares? Like, die to that and be present with them in their frustration.
I'll double down. Family members that are older than you, that are having problems that are, you have to think of them as wizened elders, but they are stuck in the same rut that you're stuck in. And especially our age, which now you've grown into an age now that you have been an adult for a while, where we're still growing.
That's actually the thing that I mean, like, time's an issue, but that's the thing that I would die to.
Yeah.
That I needed, like, I am beginning to accept that I'm like, I'm an adult now. Like, I'm a grown up.
You got some shit. Yeah.
And like, I don't think of myself that way, but I'm like, I'm bigger, I'm balder, I'm older, my beard is gray, and also, like, I do have a lot more life experience that it subtly changed. Like, having life experience certainly has its benefits, and we tend to emphasize the benefits, but it also subtly changes because you have life experience. It's a little bit like, for those of you who play video games, when you first play a video game and it's really fun and it's wide open possibilities, and then you get into it and you get towards the end of the game and you're like, I know how this game works. I know what to expect. I know what, like, and not to say that I know how life works or anything, but there's just some of that that's like, that's a thing that I'm grieving. Like, the idea that the wide open possibilities of, it's like, oh no, I'm pretty hard down a path now.
I was going to say it's starting to narrow. Ooh,
yeah.
That is kind of scary.
Yeah, yikes.
It is. It's genuinely scary.
Yeah.
But it also comes with a lot of benefits. But I can't really lean into the benefits of that until I actually admit that I'm grieving the loss of the narrowing too. Like, and that's a big thing. Like I'm gonna be 40 soon.
Yeah.
Like, that's fucking weird, man.
I'm gonna be 30 soon.
Yeah,
we're gonna be 30 soon.
You're not gonna be 30 soon.
30's not really that bad. 30's fine,
I know.
you know. 30, you can still feel like you're 20 when you're 30.
Yeah, I'm not
you
20
know?
say. So
I don't.
I had a fun story about my Mimi, one of my grandmas. We just always have these fun conversations because she's just goofy, go lucky, whatever. And because I'm only boy in the family or whatever, she's always related to me because she had two boys. She had my dad and his brother. So she's like, oh my God,
a boy.
I have a boy that
a grandson.
I can beat up on and feed and stuff food into his mouth. Who cares? But I mean, one of her things is this old wizened elder you got to follow this because I know experience in life. And I finally called something out on her, and I don't want to go into it, but it was something it's something like they don't call me anymore and stuff like that. And I go, have you tried calling them, or have you made an effort towards this relationship, or do you think they're a little too busy to do that, or you care too much about it? Where's a hobby going on, like going down that road? But from a younger perspective, back here, I'm on fire. Like, I'm going to die. I'm going to be killed because she's going to get so mad at me and disown me.
This?
And it ended very nice and subtly. And she was, you're right. You're exactly right. And I don't know where this is coming from. I just feel stuck. I heard that after we've had these discussions a few times of like, wow, even in 80s.
Well, even that's like you have to die to the child grandson in order to be the adult grandson, who's more of a partner.
And that's on mine. That's on my end. But on her end, still, even in old, wizened, and chiseled, and polished age, there's still...
She's got to let go of her...
Can I? You can.
Yeah.
And I love that.
I would say that's my big message, particularly in the new year. Don't get stuck in static. Don't get stuck in stasis. Even though I can speak from my own personal experience and what I've seen in my elders, it gets harder and harder to not get stuck in stasis the older you get, because you think there is a loss of like the wonder and the glimmer of there is that's a real thing. And I can feel it even now. However, the world and creation and God and life still absolutely has the potential to surprise and be new and be renewed.
I'd argue it's a key to keeping youth.
Yes.
I'd argue that
mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and probably even physically.
Yeah, could translate.
Like it actually is the way. Again, it's the way to life. Being willing to die to the old thing so that the new thing can resurrect and be born. And like that is why we celebrate the Christmas. You know, we'll talk a little bit more about when we get to Easter, because that's the springtime. Like that's the summer solstice, or I can't remember, but it's basically the spring harvest. You know, that's when they picked Easter, and there's a reason for that too. This is why they picked the solstice, the winter solstice, for the birth. It's because it is like turning over, new beginning. What needs to be born anew? You know, like it is.
But also in the gathering and reflecting. Mm-hmm. Like I feel like the whole point of the gather was everybody get together and we all reflect, and we hope to see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll hope to see you in a few months, because we all have to go to the town center. Like,
I'll see your fire in your house tomorrow.
Yeah, right.
Oh, they're still alive. Yeah. Cool.
So,
great.
I feel like that's a good wrap up, right? Okay. All right. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.
I think that's why.
We're going to a private party. Yeah, we're going to a private party. Yeah, we're going to a private party. Yeah, we're going to a private